QSO Today, episode 287, Fred Schramm K2HA. This episode of QSO Today is sponsored by ICOM America, makers of the finest HF, VHF, and UHF transceivers and accessories for the radio amateur, reminding you that they have just the right rig for contesters, DXers, and rag chewers. And by QRP Labs, makers of the popular QCX kit transceiver and a whole host of parts and kits for the ham radio builder. My thanks to both ICOM America and QRP Labs for sponsoring the QSO Today podcast. Welcome to the QSO Today podcast. I'm Eric Guth, 4Z1UG, your host. A few weeks ago, Fred Schramm K2HA and his daughter Joy were in Jerusalem as part of a 10-day tour of Israel. Fred reached out to me to tell me that he was coming to Israel and wanted to meet me. I called Howard, 4X1ZZ, and he went with me to meet Fred at Fred's hotel. The audio is recorded in Fred's hotel lobby using my portable Zoom H5 recorder. My apologies that this episode is more spontaneous without my usual notes and careful setup. Fred has a great story, and I'm happy to share it with you on this QSO Today. I'm sitting here with Fred Schramm, K2HA, from Pennsylvania and Florida, in the Dan Panorama Hotel in Jerusalem, Israel. Fred is on a whimsical 10-day tour.
10-day tour.
They're all 10 days when you come to Israel. It's not enough time to see anything, but it's enough time to see everything. So
I'll be back.
But see, Fred will be back.
This particular tour is to introduce us to all the places
that you want to come back to.
Yes.
That's exactly what it's for. Yeah.
And they're hoping I recruit a lot of people to come with me on the next one.
Well, Fred is a pastor, which gives him the ability to bring people and get a free trip.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is a good thing.
I agree.
So, Fred, now we have to go back to the beginning of your ham radio story.
That's fine.
So, how did you get interested in amateur radio when you first started?
The way I first started was, my parents luckily bought me an SX-99 Helicrafters receiver. And I was a shortwave listener when I was real small in grade school. And then there was somebody at my father's church who was, probably his wife he was retiring and everything, and he had a lot of parts. And so my father took me down and he gave me cigar boxes full of resistors, capacitors, relays, tubes, all kinds of stuff. Started my collection. And then I started saying, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And started tinkering and building things. And then I said, well, I could get a license and I could get on the air.
Well, how would you know to get a license? Were there any amateur radio operators in Queens at that time?
Yeah, I listened. I listened, tuned in. And, the SX-99 was not great with CW. You had to use the BFO.
Right.
But it worked, and, listened to hams send code and some talk. And so I kind of got the bug. And I was really interested in electronics, and I wanted to go to Brooklyn Tech. I took the exam. I didn't know if I'd make it.
You took the exam to get into Brooklyn Tech?
Yes.
But when did you get to license? Were you still a kid?
I think I was in 9th grade. Yeah, 9th grade.
What was your first license, first call sign?
Well, I forgot my novice one, but it was the first WA2IKU, Indiana, Kentucky United. And I had that for a while until in my pastorate, I ended up moving to Georgia, and the FC said, you can't use that down there. And then I had WB4LMK. And, it's really not a great call.
Now, were you active in the ham radio club at Brooklyn Tech?
Not really. No, I was more active in, I ended up changing my major. in tech, you had to determine in your sophomore year which division you were going to go into. Chemical engineering or electronic engineering or electrical, this, that, or the other thing, automotive. And the reason I went was for electronic engineering. But I was called by the Lord while I was at Brooklyn Tech to become a pastor, despite my original intention.
I was called by the Lord when I was in calculus and failing differential equations. That was what happened to me.
And so I ended up.
So you didn't stay there?
Well, I stayed there.
Oh, you finished?
Yeah, I had to take the college preparatory division because the colleges I was going to get into seminary, ultimately I had to have Latin, Greek, German, Hebrew, plus all the other requirements before getting to seminary. It's the classical style.
Right.
They expected you to come to seminary and you could read the Hebrew right out of the Hebraica.
Right.
And read the New Testament out of the Greek. And so the only language that tech taught was German because that's all engineers needed.
In those days.
So I took German. Then I got to college. They said, but you don't have the other ones. So my first year at college was Latin, Greek, German, English, religion, and I forgot what the other one was. That was my first year, and I had to go to Queens College in the summertime to make up all the other courses I didn't get, which I did, which didn't leave me a whole lot of time to get on the air.
We're also sitting here with Howard Silverwater, 4X1ZZ, who refuses to allow me to interview him, but he can ask questions if he'd like. Do you have a question for Fred?
I'll have, thank you.
So here you are in seminary. You have no time for doing ham radio, but obviously you've kept your license going all these years, right?
Yep.
So how did you do that along the way? Did you ever have an opportunity to work ham radio until you retired?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, every now and then I'd either operate my, I'd go to a club and, go out with the guys and we'd operate. And so I got time on the air, but breaking out my own equipment, and setting it up in a college dormitory and stuff like that, they kind of frown on that. And I did have opportunity to keep up and, whether you fill out the license, the renewal app, yes, I've been keeping, been on the air, etc. I wish I had kept all those old logs.
What was your favorite operating mode then?
I was basically phone. That's all I had time for. My code skills were getting a little rusty at that point in time. That's unfortunate. I wish that I had kept at it all the time. Just a little bit every now and then.
And the favorite operating mode now is also phone?
Yeah. Pastors like to talk.
I've heard this. And where do you like to talk? Do you like to rag chew or do you like nets? What's your favorite operating mode?
Well, my favorite operating modes right now are, every now and then I'll dabble into a contest. Not as a contester, but I sure do like making those contacts all over. But they're not the very satisfying contacts. And so I do get on, do rag chews with people, and come to know them better. And that's a lot of fun. Where I spend probably most of my time right now is I kind of volunteered for the job. I'm on Echolink. Well, I had a handheld transceiver in my condo in Philadelphia. I'm listening to a guy in Florida. And I'm scratching my head, and I responded to him. And I was on 440. and he was down in Florida, and he explained to me that I was going through a repeater in Newtown Square, Pennsylvania. I said, oh, okay. And they had a scheduled net, a rag chew, on Saturday night and Sunday night. So I kind of got on there and noticed that it was very haphazard. People would call in and, nobody would answer them. They were waiting around for somebody to do something. And I finally figured out if somebody doesn't connect these people together, they're all going to just disappear. So I just started chatting with them. Within 3 weeks, I was the net control operator. I received a message saying, you're now the net control operator. So,
well, don't you think that's kind of a natural progression, pastoral counseling, organizing the flock? I mean, it seems to me the next step is to be the net control operator, don't you think?
Yeah, except I don't like calling myself net control. I call myself the host.
The host?
The host.
Okay.
Yeah. And my job is...
It has very big theological implications, don't you think?
Yeah. My job is to connect everybody to each other and keep it all flowing.
Okay.
Okay?
And how do you do that? Are you thematic somehow, or do you come up with a topic for the week?
Well, in an hour, sometimes you don't have time to. As people build and come into the net, at first we would average maybe 6 or 7 a week on a night. It is now averaging between 15 and 18 a night. Okay? Regular. I never know who's going to show up, but people know I'm going to be there, and they enjoy it.
Why do you think that is? I mean, I know we have All-Star that we've kind of put up in Israel so that we connect to tons of repeaters in North America, and we can listen all day long, and there's nobody talking. So what do you think you've done? You've kind of actually created an opportunity for people to talk rather than just listen.
Yes. When I try to get everybody logged in, and I just look at the list as people show up on the list and move to the next person, find out, how are you doing today? I don't stress like what's the weather today, but how are you doing? And anything happening in your life this week? They're usually done in about 2-3 minutes. And we go on to the next person after we make comments. Sometimes I go for clarification. And then make sure we get everybody logged in. And now by the time we've done that, we could have used up the entire hour. Or this is the SCARS network, the South Coast Amateur Radio Service.
Now, is this an Echolink network, and it's connected to this Newtown repeater? So you're talking on 440?
Yes. It's 24 hours a day connected to the Newtown repeater, and there are other repeaters around the country. Mm-hmm. And there's All-Star.
Right. You actually happen to have WA3 DSP living in your neighborhood, who's the All-Star ARM guy who writes the software for really? All-Star. Yeah.
Okay. The net that I host is on Eastern Time, 7 o'clock on Saturday night and Sunday night.
What is the name of the net?
It's the SCARS conference server. It's the RagChew. And our website is scarsvoip.com and scarsvoip.com. And our schedules are on there. Links to all kinds of ham radio information, the propagation reports, no matter how bad it is. And news from QSD, CQ, and all those kinds of things. The schedules for their nets, and so basically I'm kind of responsible for the rag chews. Now, I've been doing that now for 5 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Every weekend?
Every weekend. I call upon a few people to fill in for me, and I have fill-ins tonight because I'm over here in Israel and it's hard to host it from here. And last night I had to fill in, but I'll be back Lord willing, I'll be back next Saturday and Sunday.
It would be hard to fill it in here because we're 7 hours ahead of the East Coast, so it would be, 2 in the morning,
2 in the morning.
By the time you got to do the net. It'd be
Right.
3 in the morning when you finished.
That's right.
This is why we don't check in.
I logged into the morning net, though, yesterday, the 8 o'clock net in Eastern Time, and it was being hosted by a guy over in central Scotland.
And now this message from ICOM America. Get outside and be active with ICOM's new IC705 HF to UHF portable transceiver and its optional multifunction backpack. This is ICOM's perfect solution for SOTA and parks on the air. The ICOM IC705 is your perfect QRP companion with its base station features and functionality at the tips of your fingers in a portable package covering HF 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. This compact rig weighs in at 1 kilogram or 2.2 pounds. This beautiful new rig has RF direct sampling for most of the HF band and IF sampling for frequencies above 25 megahertz, and includes a large 4.3-inch color touchscreen with a live band scope and waterfall display. Unbelievable. The radio is 5 watts with its internal battery and 10 watts with an external 13.8 volt power supply. This full-featured radio operates on single sideband CW, AM, FM, as well as full D-Star functions. Included in this package is a micro USB connector, Bluetooth to support linking to your smartphone or Bluetooth headset, built-in Wi-Fi, integrated GPS with antenna and GPS logger, micro SD card slot, and the HM243 speaker microphone, which is standard equipment. The perfect accessory for the IC705 is the optional backpack, the LC192, with a special compartment for your IC705 with plenty of room for antennas, cables, and other gear to get you on the air from the mountaintop or the local park. There is a link to this amazing new rig on the QSO Today podcast website for this episode, and when you order your new ICOM IC705 from your favorite ham radio dealer, be sure to tell them that you heard about it here on QSO Today. My thanks to ICOM America for their continued support of the QSO Today podcast. And now back to our QSO Today. Okay, now you were using, your computer or your smartphone or something like that to log into the net?
The smartphone.
So you have the Echolink application on your phone?
Yeah. Easy as... What I've discovered now is that ham radio is a godsend. Echolink is a godsend. All-Star is a godsend. These digital communications that you can access on either handheld or your smartphone or computer, guys move into nursing homes, to assisted care facilities. They can no longer bring all their equipment with them, their antennas, all that kind of stuff. But they can take their ham radio community with them.
Right, that's so important because we're talking about something other than technology here, right? We're talking about their friends, the friends they've had in ham radio for 60 years.
I have listened to nets, and they organize visitations to their friends that are in these restricted facilities. They bring them what they need. Other men are lonely. They have nobody visiting them. They can't talk to anybody. But it is the modern coffee shop for especially men, or mostly men, but there are a lot of women on also. that really enjoy getting onto these internet connected. But now our server is up there by the Great Lakes. It can host. We can have 4,000 connections at one time, which is fantastic. You'd never be able to run a net, 4,000, but we can connect people together. And people can still talk and have fun. Yes, everybody's licensed. They're respectful. And I introduced the net in saying that we are a caring, connecting net.
You don't have a problem being an old-timer and saying, ham radio is just HF. It's either the CW key or the microphone. You got to have a 6146 or a power transistor on the output. You're talking about using your smartphone and talking on Echolink. And there would be a lot of people that would say, well, that's not really ham radio. What do you think?
That's what they say, until they need it. And I have, being a pastor, I know those people in nursing homes, in assisted cares, in antenna-restricted communities don't have many choices.
It's amateur radio changing with the times.
It is.
And because of changing with the times, the hobby continues.
Yeah, we have more people licensed in the United States today as ham radio operator than we have ever had at one time.
Although the majority of them are not on the air. I mean, a lot of people are getting their licenses, right, and not doing anything with them.
Unfortunately, that's true. And giving those people a reason and convenience to be on the air is more important than just lamenting that they have a license and they're not doing anything with it. No, I enjoy getting on the HF. I enjoy rag chewing on 80 meters or on 40 or 20. And it's a funny thing. This mystery antenna that I found up in the trees, I get, on 440, up on 70 centimeters, I get about 1-to-1 SWR. And don't need a tuner. It just raw just directly into the antenna. And 2 meters is great. It's about 1-to-3. I'm just absolutely amazed. So I go 80, from 80 all the way up to 440.
Wow. And what kind of radio are you using on 440 and 2 meters?
Just a handheld. I'm just using one of those UV82 Bowfangs, those despised little radios. It's quite reliable for me. That's right, $32. They're down to now. And the UV5s are down, I see them as low sometimes as 21.
Now, do you have an all-star hotspot or anything like that? And for the guys that are in the convalescent homes and stuff, do you recommend that kind of gear so they can get on the air with a portable?
If I was in a nursing home, the easiest way to do it is to just use like a Bullfang or one of the cheaper handhelds for 2 meters and for 440. And you could even get one, pay a little bit more money, about $100, and get DMR on there too. Or you can get one with All-Star. Putting in a hotspot has its problems with connections and things like that. With your cell phone, you're on the air immediately, just with the app that's on there. It works like a charm. With the handheld, if you have a repeater that's close by, you're in luck. Like in Pennsylvania, they have the University of Pennsylvania has a connected repeater system throughout the state. And so you can get on there and you can talk throughout the state of Pennsylvania.
Do you think that SCAR's VoIP is unique in America?
In some ways it is. Boy, I tell you, that came out of there were a bunch of guys back 12 years ago that noticed that South Cars was getting much too crowded. people didn't really have opportunity to check in, and even though they were on for 6 hours,
What is South Cars?
South Coast is the South Coast Amateur Radio Service, and they are on HF.
It's like a 40-meter net.
40-meter net on 7.251 every morning, and through about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And they switch net controls every hour or half hour, depending, and or bounce it around the country, the eastern part of the country. And there's Mid Cars, the Mid Coast Amateur Radio Service, and there's East Cars. And
I remember West Cars when I was a kid in California, 7255.
Yeah, so I just happened to get connected to South Cars. And Gordon was Gordon Smith down in Port St. Lucie was the mover and shaker, got a bunch of guys together 12 years ago, and they said, we need to put a digital service on too. And they're celebrating their anniversary this month, the 12th year of being on the air. I just kind of stumbled into it. Well, I was in Florida too, but it's not the only show in town, but I don't know too many others that are doing the style of networking that I'm doing.
I think you've already said it, that amateur radio is quite relevant for retirees. Would you encourage retirees who don't have amateur radio licenses to get amateur licenses, especially if they've got some technical background?
I do that all the time. I start talking to men, and I say, you need to get a license, and I'll show you how to do it. This is easy. It's easy to get a tech license. Now, I'm an extra. You don't need that to do what I'm doing on the digital service. I talk to people, and our club runs courses, and so does the ScarsNet. They have the podcasts on their conference server so that people can follow along on how to get trained into become a ham radio operator.
What do you think is the most exciting thing in amateur radio right now for you?
Keeping up with it. It is moving so fast. It scares some people. I just find it fascinating. I kind of I hang around waiting to see which digital mode's going to stick. And I don't rush out to buy the latest equipment and find out it's obsolete in the next year and I needed something else. But, I see how it goes. And I says, that looks interesting. So I did buy a DMR radio. When I get back, I'm going to work on learning how to run that thing. So
programming the code plug I found is the biggest challenge. Would you agree?
I agree.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to work on that because I hear they got some good nets over here. I'd like to keep connection with Israel. This is a fascinating, from a pastor standpoint, you learn the scripture, how to understand it in a much more exciting way by being there, seeing and learning the history in more detail.
Being there means here, which is Jerusalem, Israel.
Yes, I have spent, this is my 5th day here in Jerusalem. And we're still not running out of things to learn. It is just absolutely, but I'll be back.
Let me take a quick break here to tell you about my favorite amateur radio audio podcast, the Ham Radio Workbench Podcast with George, KG6VU, and Jeremy, KF7IJZ, where they pursue topics, technology, and projects on their ham radio workbenches every 2 weeks. George and Jeremy document their projects and make circuit boards available for sale to their listeners. They have interesting guests and go in deep. Even if you're a seasoned ham radio builder or just getting started, be sure to join George and Jeremy for the Ham Radio Workbench podcast. Use the link on this week's show notes page by clicking on the image. And now back to our QSO today. What do you think is the most interesting thing you've seen in Jerusalem?
That is hard to say. I did enjoy Hezekiah's tunnel, engineering on that. I'm still trying to figure out how they connected two teams together and met in the middle. Some of the engineering back there, hundreds of years ago, 1,000 years ago, was fantastic to be able to do that work.
I live in Efrat, which is about 8 miles south of the Old City, and there's a water tunnel that starts there that goes underground all the way to the UN compound over on the hill there.
Like East Talpiot.
In East Talpiot. And that's, what is that, maybe 7 miles long, that tunnel?
Yeah.
With a very gradual slope, because it used to, the water came from where I live in Efrat, came from a spring there, and it served the Temple Mount. So there used to be a bridge that went across the valley into the Old City.
Yeah, well, like Hezekiah's tunnel is about 535 feet long or something like that. And the gradient drop is 30 centimeters. Amazing engineering. That these two tunnels coming from two different sides would match. It still blows my mind. It's over in Bethlehem today, and I knew that blue was the color of the Virgin Mary. I knew that, but I didn't know why. Now I do. It's because she was of the tribe of Judah, and the color of Judah tribe is blue, and they're supposed to wear the blue veil when the mother gives birth, the color of the tribe.
Her clothing colors, her colors.
Yeah, her colors.
Like her flag.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And I didn't know that was the custom, that the mothers in each tribe wore a distinctive veil of that color.
What's interesting about that, and I didn't actually know this, but the color blue in those days was not native. The color blue was made from the snails off the coast, because we use the same color blue to make what's called techelet, to make the blue string in the tzitzit, in the ritual garment. So that blue was not a natural color here, and so it was harvested from the sea, and so it was very, very expensive. So if the tribe of Judah was wearing blue, then they were actually quite successful and very wealthy to be able to afford to buy this color, this dye.
It's amazing. I didn't know that either.
So they like gold. We don't wear gold, but blue is expensive.
Yeah. Okay. So I found that very fascinating today. Masada, went up onto Masada in the fortress up there, and I wish I had more time to look around and to see that. En Gedi, we kind of rushed through that, didn't have time to really enjoy the falls, and we saw them, but I didn't see any ibex, any of the deer there or anything, so another time.
Well, some of these places surprised me. Maybe they surprised you too, Howard? With the rain right now, and we never curse the rain in Israel, but places like En Gedi are pretty dangerous from the flash flooding standpoint.
Really?
After a rain, or during the rain and a day or so after the rain, it gets flash floods because of the elevation of Jerusalem and the surrounding areas to the Dead Sea, which is the lowest point on earth, or at least in the neighborhood. So they see the waters from the rains.
Well, that's the other thing that surprised me was, Florida, for example, has a water problem because there's so much growth, right, and they take it out of the aquifer and then the saltwater intrusion and things like that. Well, they have problems. The Dead Sea is receding because it's not being fed with the water that other communities now need for their growing populations.
Right. The source of the water for the Dead Sea is the Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee. But I think we've had more rain now this week in the last 50 years, right?
Yeah, well, there's quite a
It was
drought.
a big week for rain.
It was a big week for rain, right?
It's a blessing, but it was a lot in one shot. It'd be nice if it was spread out.
Yes, that's right.
Were you up in the north already?
We're going tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
We're heading toward Galilee, and that's going to be a new experience also.
Should be beautiful up there, too, I think.
So ham radio, and I run basically old equipment right now.
So you're not running any of the digital modes like FT8?
Not yet. I bought an add-on that I can, put that connected to my computer. So you can do it with an old transceiver. You just have to have a buffer, a connection.
Don't you need a frequency standard to do FT8 on an old rig? Don't you need something that actually will hold the stability of the transceiver, Howard?
The Rig Blaster.
I think you need sound cards and.
Well, Rig Blaster has a sound card in it.
To stay on frequency, I think you'd maybe let the rig warm up for a while before you put on FT8.
Experience that. But you need an accurate watch, and you need a sound card and a program.
Use Time Is. You get on Time Is, set your computer
Right.
and the nice thing about that site, timeis.com, is it tells you if your computer is 1 second off, a half a second off, or whatever, and so you just keep on working it until it matches. So you got to do that yourself. There are other ways that will do it for you automatically. I haven't invested in that.
Are you a Windows guy, or are you a Mac guy, or are you a Unix guy?
Windows, yeah. I'm cursing Windows right now because I'm still running Windows 7 Pro. And by the time I get to the end of this trip, they will not be servicing it anymore. No more security updates or anything. It ends while I'm on this trip.
I do this for a living, and I've converted all my clients to Windows 10 begrudgingly.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm probably have to do. I'm thinking that when I get back, I'm just going to buy a Windows 10 computer.
Or you could go to Linux, put the whole thing on Linux.
Well, I'll put Linux on the one I have now. But just for everything else I do on Windows and things like that, just get another computer to run all that stuff, and then use the Linux for the ham radio.
What do you think is the greatest challenge to amateur radio now?
One is getting over the myth that it's hard. People they look at it and say, this is all insurmountable for me to get licensed. It's not. It's fairly easy. Some people read and they understand well. I am a more audio type of guy. I like to hear it. Okay? Now, I could sit down with a license manual like that and start going through that, and I find myself asleep very rapidly. But if I'm listening to it, I absorb it, I learn it very fast, and I remember it. So I like audio. There are some services that are on the internet that will read to you the question, read to you the possible answers. I don't recommend that because it's confusing. But there's some that read to you the question and the right answer. So if you have a license manual and you're listening, and all of a sudden you say, I don't understand that at all. Well, there's tons of help. There's guys on the internet that will explain it to you. They'll just lay it out. Okay, this is why, this is this, and this. So you look that one up. Oh, okay, I got that one. And you move on to the next one. And slowly, if you have any average intelligence, within 2 weeks you're ready to take the exam, the tech exam.
What advice would you give to new hams or returning hams to the hobby? Would you say that you're a returning ham, or you've always been active?
Well, I've been active, but the just minimally while I was doing full-time pastoring and counseling and things like that. The enough to keep my license alive, and when I got back in, do a lot of listening, join a club, start talking to people, work field day. Field day is a heck of a lot of fun. Just volunteer to operate. Within a matter of minutes, you're going to start feeling like an old pro. Just dive in. And if you don't know it and you're in a club, they will help you. Don't be embarrassed. Say, I've been out this while, I don't understand. I hear people on the air say, I just got back into this and I can't understand what that is. And people jump in. As long as you're not on 80 meters, they'll help you.
So what's going on in 80 meters? Those are the old guys, right?
There are some guys on 80 meters that like to insult others.
By the way, I was first licensed in 1973, and I can tell you those same guys are still there.
Yeah. I found an open spot on 40 meters one time while I was down in Florida, and I was so happy I found the frequency to call out on. And then I made a few contacts, and somebody then got on there and said, "Get off my frequency." And he was nasty, and I said, this is not worth the fight. I know that he has no right to the frequency, but I wasn't going to raise my blood pressure and take him on. And since I've listened to some of the guys on that frequency, and they think they own it.
Right. Spin the dial.
Yeah, I go elsewhere. I am not going to get into a verbal battle, and then they look for you. Ooh. Yeah.
So they'll follow you up and down the band, or to other bands, to see how they can make your life miserable?
Yeah. Life is too short. Someday they'll annoy the FCC enough that something will happen. But until that time, I'm not going to take them on. I'm not responsible.
And now this message from QRP Labs. QRP Labs has shipped thousands of QCX QRP transceivers kits to date. The odds of working another QCX user gets better every day. If you're looking for a satisfying kit experience where you end up with an amazing performing QRP transceiver for under $50, let me say that again, for under $50, then you owe it to yourself to go to QRP Labs. We have many home brewers who listen to the QSO Today podcast. For you, QRP Labs also has parts, filters, enclosures, and other handy devices to make your home brewing experience even better. You can use these parts to either enhance your QRP Labs kits or to beef up your own homebrew designs. Be sure to browse Hand's entire website. Use the link on this week's show notes page or the one in the sponsored section of the QSO Today website to get to QRP Labs to buy your QCX or any of the other fine QRP Labs kits or parts. QRP Labs is my go-to ham radio kit company. It should be yours too. QRP Labs. And now back to our QSO Today. Now, do you have an XYL?
Yes, and she's every once in a while, "Oh, you're on that again."
So she's not really into ham radio like you are?
No. She's a dog lover, and so we have 3 dogs right now, and we've lost five dogs in 5 years, and the grief in our house is pretty intense right now. So I called earlier today, and that's all I heard about. The next one is about ready to die, and it's not good. But, after they die, and then all of a sudden my wife wants another dog, and so she's a dog lover.
I get it. I'm a dog lover, too. What kind of dogs do you have?
I have one Norwegian Elkhound. He's 55 pounds. He's a lover. He's always joyous. He's a doofus. He causes all kinds of problems. You can't make him feel guilty about anything. And right now he's playing Catch Me If You Can with my wife, and she can't get him. The only thing that brings him into the house is when he gets hungry. And the other dog is a pit bull, and she's over 50 pounds. And they love each other, but they want to be outside causing chaos, barking and everything like that for hours, and we can't allow that to happen in our neighborhood. It is a trial, but the Silky Terrier, 14 years old, is blind, and she fell a few days ago, and she's in tremendous pain, and the doctors don't know how to fix it, and they don't know what's wrong. And so she can't see, can't move, in pain, and so another one. She's been with us a long time.
Well, I know how it is. My dogs are getting old as well, and you see it every day.
No,
Do you have anything to say about it? You have no dogs.
Don't have dogs,
No.
but 3 great boys.
That's right. That's right.
I'm working with the boys.
Well, I was surprised by there are very few. You see very few dogs out in Israel. You see lots of cats, but I don't see many dogs around.
Well, I have an apartment, and the apartment isn't so big, and it's not dog-friendly. There's no outdoors. It's just an apartment.
Right.
I do have a balcony, but it's a ceramic floor, and I don't see it.
Dogs are a new thing for this generation in Israel. The previous generations didn't have dogs. The cats were brought by the British, I think, right, to control rats. So now we have cats. We have cats that are smarter than rats. Wow. And we have lots of cats. And then we have new trash cans that are designed to keep the cats out of the trash.
I'd rather have cats than
So now we're reducing the cat population, and now the rat population is coming back, so we have to feed the cats outside of the trash cans now in order to keep the cats on patrol. It's this cycle we're learning here with the new trash cans. We have these new underground trash cans. So that's why you see cats. But I think the younger Israelis, there's a lot more dogs now. We have Kennel Association and...
Yeah, well, I looked it up. There's about 12,000 registered dogs in Jerusalem.
Yeah, that makes sense. And they all have to have a chip. Where I live, there's a lot of wild dogs as well.
Really? Okay. This is a very interesting place. Even learning about the political differences and the tensions and everything. And but I told people I was coming to Israel, and they say, "You're going to Israel? And is it safe?" Well, I'm here. It's safe.
The coffee's pretty good.
Yes. The food is great here at the hotel. I recommend anybody to come. It's worth it. It really is. It opens your eyes to, going Aliyah up to Jerusalem.
Right,
going up.
To Jerusalem.
Yeah. I'll be back. Probably with a bunch of guys. And maybe we're going to get together a ham radio tour.
What do you think about that? I've actually thought about throwing a ham radio tour. We put the All-Star and DMR on the buses, and so that everybody has their handhelds. And
it's an idea worth developing.
I've actually thought about this.
Yeah. I think it'd be a great idea.
Then every place we stop, we set up a HF station, or we go to places where there's HF stations already. Howard and I spent at least another hour with Fred discussing his life in Fairbanks, Alaska, his counseling practice through the years, and more ham radio. We enjoyed this opportunity to meet face-to-face with a fellow ham and listener to the podcast. Fred went on to spend the rest of the week touring the north of Israel. 73 from Jerusalem. My thanks to both ICOM America and QRP Labs for their support of the QSO Today podcast. Please show your support of these fine sponsors by clicking on their links in the show notes pages, or when you make your purchases, that you say that you heard it here on QSO Today. You may notice that some of the episodes are transcribed into written text. If you'd like to sponsor this or any of the other episodes into written text, please contact me. Support the QSO Today podcast by first joining the QSO Today email list by pressing the subscribe buttons on the show notes pages. I will not spam you or share your email address with anyone. Become a listener sponsor monthly or annually by clicking on the sponsor buttons on the show notes page. I am grateful for any way that you show appreciation and support. It makes a big difference. QSO Today is now available on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Libsyn, and TuneIn, as well as the iTunes Store. If you own an Amazon Echo, you can say, "Alicia, play the QSO Today podcast from TuneIn." I still use Stitcher to listen to podcasts on my smartphone. The links to all of these services are on the show notes pages on the right side. Until next time, this is Eric 4Z1UG73. The QSO Today podcast is a product of KEG Media Inc., who is solely responsible for its content.